Howdy, everyone, and welcome to another replay for the Red Bull Junior Championship. Once again, just before I commence the replay, I'm just going to take a look at the standings coming into this race. So, in the lead of the championship, we've got myself, Doug in second, Hairraiser in third, Superboy in fourth, Piggums in fifth, and Mike is in sixth. So if you've been watching this series before, you'll know that we apply success ballast. So I will be running 90 kilos, Doug will be running 84, Hairraiser 78, Superboy 72, Piggum 66, and Mike will be running the bottom 60. Everyone else will be running no ballast for this race. And without further ado, let's count the lights in for the start of the feature race at Broadbean Raceway. We got Mark on pole with TDC alongside, and we are away for the Speedway race. Definitely probably the Joker race of the season, because there's no other track on the calendar like this, and it's a very good start for Mark into turn one. It does say that Mike is leading. I do believe that is an issue with the timing. It has just fixed itself. So Mark gets away cleanly going into the first braking zone. Only one braking zone on the lap, so it is quite difficult to make an overtake around this track, especially if you have the ballast on board. It does make it incredibly difficult to gain on your rival. And we're already seeing TDC pulling out for a move around the outside into turn one. But he has compromised himself, and now I pull alongside to take P2 up the inside into turn two. So, and even now Petrol sweeping past him as well. So it is very difficult as well. It's such a short lap as well that the field should stay relatively close together. You can just see how quickly they come past the camera through the final corner. The field should be very close together because there's only one braking zone on the lap. There's only really one place to make a proper out-braking manoeuvre on your rival. So this is probably a very fast-paced race, as it normally is in the Red Bull Juniors. As we see now, they're going three wide coming into the kink on the back straight, I guess you could call it, with Tap and Hairraiser going side by side through the final corner, ahead with, I believe that is Cobra, who is returning for this race, trying to have a go at Superboy into the first corner, but nothing doing as of yet. And Piggums as well now, having a look at the inside of TDC. As they fly through to the final corner, and once again, and Piggums, he is running ballast as I've just mentioned, so he will be struggling to overtake TDC in a straight line. And as there we see myself going for a move round the outside to take the lead, using that high line, using the camber of the corner to carry the exit speed, and Mark there losing out two positions as Petrol again wants to capitalising on a position that I have made. So it's frantic stuff at the start. Mark will be looking to just gain a solid result as it stands. He has not attended the past couple of meetings, so he'll be wanting just to get some solid points on the board, maybe go for a win. He is one of the fastest drivers in the field. And Petrol now going for the move. So we've had three different race leaders in the space of just under a lap. So typical stuff for the Red Bull Juniors. There's never normally stays the same for long. And there is a bit of a gap forming between, I believe that looks like the top eight. I believe Doug is the one at the back of the group. So the field is kind of split in half at the moment. I think there probably has been some battling over the ninth position in this race, which has caused the other cars to drop back. So the slipstream does carry the drivers forwards at this track. You do really want it, especially again if you are carrying that ballast. So as we watch the cars now coming around, it's already coming around to start lap 8. We're going to get a lot of laps in here, only doing just over 3 minutes on the clock already. It is another half-an-hour sprint race. So Mark coming up to have a go on the outside of Petrol. However, I think I bump drafted Petrol into turn one, so it gave him a bit of exit speed, but he hasn't compensated. He hits the wall on the outside, and Mark should go through again. However, I am following Petrol through, trying to keep him ahead. And that allows TDC to now draw back into the leading fights. And there is now a four-way fight. I did see some contact on the outside wall of turn one in the background, so I think Piggums and Barr have had a bit of an incident back there. So now TDC is the one who looks like he's in the hot seat to take the lead back. He has just about squeezed his bumper along the inside of Petrol, and he gets back into second place. So it has been a very good lap from TDC so far. However, all the battling has allowed Mark to escape just a little bit up the road. But as long as TDC can get the slipstream once again, he should be able to bring himself back into this race with the amount of downforce that these Red Bull Junior cars have. It is imperative that you do have that slipstream because it just takes all of the drag off the car. And with this fight for second place, it has brought Piggums and Barr back into this. As well as Tapp has now made his way up into 6th place. I can't remember how low down he started from the... I didn't quite see where he did start. But once again, it seems to be a typical Tapp start where he does seem to capitalise on those around him. He is also running without weight, if I remember correctly. So he'll be looking for a really good result. As you see there, Piggums making a late move up the inside. I scuffed the wall on the outside, but thankfully neither of us sustaining damage through that. And I've lost 2 positions trying to give Piggums room on the inside. But Piggums with a very aggressive move into the first corner and making it work quite well. He's now up into 3rd place. It's alright, Doug. You haven't missed... Well, you've missed quite a lot of overtakes, but... You know, there's probably still plenty to come. So Petrol, again now, trying to defend off of Piggums, who has had a run at him down the start-finish rate. So Petrol now moving back into that 3rd place. Piggums in 4th, myself in 5th, Barr in 6th, and Tapp back down to 7th temporarily. And I'm pretty sure TDC and Mark will be licking their lips seeing this battle happening behind them, because they are just breaking away from the group as we go 3 wide onto the start-finish straight again. Barr giving Piggums a bump draft into turn 1, which keeps him ahead of the rest of the cars. And there is a bit of rubbing coming out of turn 1, but again, I think they're all fine for that. Petrol, I have just noticed, does have some front-end damage. So whether he has hit someone a bit too hard using the bump draft, or whether he has outbroken himself into turn 1, I'm not quite sure, but he does have damage. And in the Red Bull Junior Series, that is permanent damage. He will have to pit to change that, and that will kill his straight line speed. That will be almost as bad as him running ballast, probably even worse, depending on how hard he hit the car in front. So that will really kill his momentum around the track. As I now go for the inside line on the back straight, but nothing doing as of yet. It is very risky to go up the inside of someone here. There is a wall always waiting for you to hit if you get it wrong. So it is tentative stuff. No one wants to lose out on this battle so early on in the race. And Petra now having a look, but it ends up turning into a defence from Tapp and Barr. And it looks like Steve has now moved himself up into 5th place. So he has regrouped after dropping back slightly. And all of this fighting is allowing Doug just to close in slightly on the leaders. Doug is running one of the heavier cars for this race, so that does explain why he does need a bit of help from the cars ahead fighting just to catch back up, because his car just simply doesn't have the straight line speed. And Petrol seemingly having a torrid time at the moment. He is dropping back. He was running in 2nd place at one point, and he's now fighting over P7. So something is probably likely down to that damage, and he just cannot get the turn in through the high-speed corners, and also doesn't have the straight line speed, so he has dropped back slightly. And quickly cutting back to this battle, we've got Mike and that's Simon and Pappy battling for 9th position. These two are very good friends and quite similar on pace, so it does understand why these two are in a very tight battle. But Pappy does get compromised on the exit, and Razor now slipping up the inside to take P10 off of Pappy, with Cobra waiting in the wings to see if he can capitalise on this. And we have got a driver in the pit lane. I don't know who that is. I believe it is someone who is close to the back of the pack, because they're not coming up on the timing tower to the left-hand side of the screen. So I'm not quite sure who that is. So just to give you a quick race rundown, we've got Mark in the lead at the moment, closely followed by TDC. He has done well to catch up here, considering that Mark did have a healthy advantage after 5 minutes into this race. So TDC just putting in those consistent lap times and maybe has a bit more confidence at the moment. We've got Tapp running in 3rd now, so he's had a very good previous 2 laps, it would seem, as he's now moved up another 2 positions. Piggins in 4th, myself in 5th, Petrol closely following in 6th, Barr in 7th, Doug in 8th, Razor in 9th now after overtaking Simon just now. Simon is in 10th, Cobra in 11th, Pappy in 12th, Mike in 13th, and Superboy is in 14th. But I believe he was the car in the pit lane, as he is getting the blue flags for the car behind. So Mark now really under pressure from TDC behind. I believe we are going to see a move from the American into turn 1. He's got the run. He does just about hit the bump back of Mark there. So I think he has given him a bump draft, which is probably not what he wanted to do, unless he is trying to conserve fuel. If I remember correctly, fuel was a big concern coming into this race, as there is contact for Tap coming out of turn 1. I did just see that on the track map, and he has got front end damage. So he will maybe pit now, coming in to change that. And yes, he does. He does come into the pit lane. So that is not what he wants to see after having such a good start, gaining those positions early on and capitalising on the battles ahead. And he's unfortunately just made one mistake, and that's all it takes to ruin your race around this track. So Bar having a quick look up the inside of Petrol there, nothing doing as of yet. He has compromised his run slightly, which has allowed myself to catch back up to him. But you can just see the tyre wear in the bottom left of the screen. Because this obviously is an oval with only one proper braking zone, every corner is taken flat out at this track. And with them all being left-handers at bar 1, the outside right-hand tyres do take a punishment around here, as Bar has a bit of a collision there with Petrol. Petrol seemingly getting it wrong with the damage, and Bar moving up past Petrol. So Petrol's now lost 3 positions in that exchange, promoting Doug up the inside, and Petrol does bail for the pit lane to probably get that damage fixed. It is probably killing his tyres as well, because if you don't have optimum aero on the car, it does seem to wear the tyres out more. So as we see now, Bar bringing Doug into this battle, how close this has been so far just allows Doug to keep on closing the gap, running a clean race behind. And Doug, I believe he was looking around the outside, but he's almost run out of tyre on that front right. So it does seem to be as well that the controller players, as you'd expect, would have worse tyre wear. So along with the ballast and the dirty air to go along with that, those front tyres are being killed at the moment. And we have done 24 laps at the moment. I believe the optimum strategy is to go halfway into this race and then box, because you just want to get off this earliest set of tyres as quickly as possible. So this battle for the lead is just stalemating a little bit at the moment. We haven't seen, from what I could tell, too many battles between these two. TDC, I've just noticed, is short shifting behind Mark, so I think he is trying to get as many laps out of that fuel as possible. He's using that slipstream to not quite close up for an attack and compromise both of their speed. He's just using Mark at the moment, just to pull him along and get away. It would be ideal for these two if they could keep it as it is, keep it as a 2-car battle, because the less cars involved in a battle on an oval, and the less risk is involved. And Piggins as well, just starting to break away in 3rd place. He's had a good start so far, just winning consistent lap times and keeping his nose clean at the moment. The same cannot be said for myself and Bar, who are continuing our battle for what seems like to be the past 10 laps now. So, and you can just see the amount of effort it takes the cars with ballast just to pull up in the slipstream. And Doug seems to have broken away from this group again. I think Steve has come out in between this battle, so he is a lap down, having made that extra stop. But Doug has almost run out of tyres, and he might have to go for a 2-stop here. I'm not quite sure if he can get 15 minutes out of these tyres. So he might have to make another stop. We see Cobra there just boxing for his first pit stop of the race. And you can just see there, I have now hit the wall, no damage sustained, but you can just see the difference in grip between Steve, who has pitted for new tyres, and everyone else who is running around on the tyres that they started the race on. And it's just night and day between the lap times and the confidence through turn 1. So Steve, potentially with an advantage here, if he can make a 2-stop work, he will have an advantage having done the undercut to get the fresher tyres on the car. But you see now Simon and Doug coming into the pit lane for another set of tyres. Mike circulating in 9th, he has got front end damage, so I don't know when he got that, sustained that, but There's probably going to be quite a few cars with damage throughout this race. It is a very tricky track to get right. As we see, Petrol now circulating in 9th. So despite having to come into the pits to fix that damage, it looks like he hasn't lost out too much because he's going to come around turn 1. I believe that is Doug on the pit out now. So he's only lost a little bit of time. He was fighting for positions a little bit further ahead than Doug, but he hasn't lost out too much. So I believe we won't be too annoyed about that. Obviously, it is frustrating that he cannot carry on for his battle for the lead like he was at the start, but at least he's looking like he can still get a top 6 result. And I have now just come into the pit lane and changed onto my second set of tyres, but still not making it to that halfway point, which is the key point in this race. We're about to hit that 15-minute mark in the race, as Piggums now comes into the pit lane, same as Barr, and you can just see that those cars without the ballast are just able to take their tyres a handful of laps longer than everyone else. So, and you can see they're happy actually coming up to lap Doug. He has not made his stop yet, and he is one of the smoother drivers on his tyres and fuel. And you can just tell at the moment that he's just able to extend his stints. However, Razor is now squeezing his way, trying to unlap himself there. And this is actually, Pappy is kind of the odd one out here, because I believe Razor, Cobra and Doug are all fighting for a position here, and Pappy is just trying to stay and put a lap on them. They're going to go 3 wide into turn 1, which seems like a big risk, but only 2 of them are actually fighting for position. However, Pappy just leaning on Razor slightly, but no one in the wall as of yet. However, Razor does get a little bit of a scuff against the wall, and Cobra now seizing his opportunity and overtaking all 3 of them. So, I mean, it's action-packed stuff, even when the cars on track aren't even for position. So TDC has now come into the pit lane, relinquishing Pappy into the lead of the race. So we'll see where Mark comes out in relation to TDC. If TDC has been able to fuel save like he was in the slipstream, this could be very close. You can see on the track map that TDC just coming through the first corner on the pit lane now. I don't think he's quite got it. He will lose out a little bit as he has to build the momentum up as he gets tyres up temperature and accelerates out of the pit lane. So he has lost a bit of time due to Mark's undercut there, but it's definitely not over for him. He can definitely close in there. We've got Tap running around in 4th with Piggums in 5th behind him. So that undercut has worked well for Tap. However, Piggums is one of the quickest drivers in the group, and he is on slightly fresher tyres. Mike there running around a lap down, I think, because he's not, it should be Bart that's in P6, so he is a lap down, but he is not too far away from unlapping himself here. So we'll see if he can do anything about that. And you can see that myself, Bart and Petrol have sort of dropped away now. After the fighting that we had in the midpoint of this race, we have dropped away from the rest of the field, which is a bit of a shame for our races, but you know, it was exciting to watch at least, as Petrol now goes down the inside into turn 2 with the better grip from turn 1, and he's made his way up into P6. So it has been a solid recovery despite being wrong-footed with the damage from the earlier part of the race. So it does seem to be promoting a lot of group racing, this track. It is very typical of an oval track to promote cars where there's more than just 2 cars involved in a battle. And the trend does seem to be that it is 3 to 4 car battles all the way around the track. As we cut back to Doug and Razor once again. And Pappy, obviously being the race leader now, he is still involved in this battle, which I presume would be very tense about. He doesn't want to get taken out by a car that is a lap down. And if I was Pappy now, I would get into the pit lane, because he's already gone well past halfway through this race. He could easily make the tyres go as he nearly puts Razor into the wall, perhaps not knowing that Razor had such a good exit from the final corner. But Razor uses the camber on the outside to take, well, to basically unlap himself. So he's keeping himself in the fight here. I believe he hasn't gone a lap down to the cars that have already pitted, and there Pappy does do what I predicted, and he does come into the pit lane for his first and probably only stop of the race. He has made it far enough into this race to easily get to the end. As you see in the background there, we've got Simon and Troy battling for position, and there is blue flags at the moment as Mark comes in out of nowhere. He's such a speed difference from the two drivers, and Mark seems to be able to easily negotiate the pair of them. He will the inside line for turn 3 there, and he manages to put a lap on the pair. So that'll be a sigh of relief for Mark as he wants to build that gap from TDC, which he seems to be doing quite well. But it's battles everywhere you go. We're already on lap 41 as Simon seemingly having a bit of overspeed into turn 1. He had to go for the inside there, not to run into the back of Mark, and it compromises his line a little bit. But Superboy cannot seem to find a way past at the moment, and Mike's still circulating in 14th place, so I think he has been really hampered by that damage that we saw him have earlier on. But at least he's involved in all the battles, as we see there Petrol and Bar going side by side through turn 3. And I will try and grab an onboard. It is quite difficult to flick to an onboard camera when there's so much going on and there's so many different battles to watch. Probably the only two that are probably having a quiet race at the moment is probably Tap and Piggins, because everyone else just seems to be involved in some sort of scuffle. So I believe I will try and grab an onboard from Petrol as we come around the final corner now. You can see Bart there just trying to have a look. Mike getting out of the way on the high side of the banking, which is a very sportsmanlike thing to do. He doesn't have to do that by the rules of the GTRC season, but at least he managed to get out of the way and he hasn't compromised anyone's race. And you just hear the tyre squealing coming through these corners. The cars are on the absolute limit here, using all the downforce and really pushing the tyres hard. And it will be interesting to see towards the end of the race, Pet having to lift off the throttle there, whether he got onto the apron and slightly unsettled his car. I'm not quite sure. Normally, these cars do feel so stable because of that rear end downforce that they have. And, well, both drivers pushing right up against the wall there. And Bar seems to have a very good run out of turn 1. He does seem to be able to just push the car a bit harder. I do believe that is because Bar pitted after Petrol, so he does have a little bit of better, well, superior grip, as he hasn't worn the tyres down as far. But as I was going to say before, Bar scratched the wall coming through turn 1. It will be interesting to see how many drivers overheat the tyres, because the car is constantly turning around the track. The tyres, especially on the front, will be overheating, but particularly the rear will be interesting to see coming out of turn 1, because what you don't want is to plant the throttle in too low of a gear and you get loads of wheel spin because you've been stressing your rear tyres too much. So at the moment, I don't think Bar just can't find a way through. Despite it being an oval, it does feel incredibly narrow from what I remember driving in these cars. It does feel like a very narrow track when you're going around all the corners, because there is just one racing line really. If you go wide around any of these corners to try and carry the speed on the high side of the camber, you just can't do it because the corners are too long. The only way you can do that is into turn 1. So, but Bar just seems to be getting a fraction closer every single lap there. As you see, TDC making a shocking second pit stop. He has got damage, so he has hit the wall somewhere, presumably at turn 1. He was in amongst a few lapped cars the last time I checked. I believe he was trying to get past Simon and Superboy, as he was quite close to Mark, who had lapped them about 10 laps ago now. So that is really unfortunate for TDC. He was on for such a good result. And we've seen now Petrol actually challenging for the podium again. So Piggins, I don't really know what's happened there, because he hasn't got any damage and he definitely hasn't spun, otherwise he would have lost a lot more time. But shockingly, he's just lost out 2 positions there. And I don't know quite how that's happened, because he's just done 2 consecutive lap times that are in the 28s. Potentially 3. I can't see what he's done on lap 50 for some reason. And he's actually got 2 lap 50s on that board, so I think the game has had a bit of a bug on that lap, so I can't quite see what his lap times are for lap 48. But Yeah, a bit of a weird case there where he has just dropped off slightly, but at least he's not out of it. He doesn't have any damage. So at least he can try and regroup and get back onto that podium. They are definitely not that far away as the Bar and Petrol continue to fight hard in this race. And he's very close to the back. Coming through that corner, he just seems to be bump drafting him everywhere. Whether he's setting himself up for a final lap overtake so that he gives Petrol the least amount of time available to have a repass at him, which is often what you would see on an oval track. You would normally wait until the last lap so that you could slingshot past someone using the slipstream, so that the guy that you're racing has no chance to come back at you because you're already on the final lap. So we'll see how that plays out. But I mean, Tap is having a very good race at the moment, running around in second place. He did start towards the lower end of the top 10, if I'm guessing correctly. I didn't quite see, as I mentioned before. But he has now capitalised on Pigham's mistake, and he's breaking away from the rest of the cars. But I mean, Mark at the moment still involved in the battle between racing lapped cars, but I don't believe he was pushing too hard. Having said that, he has just hit the wall, but no damage as of yet, so I don't think it was a particularly big hit, and that actually does let Superboy unlap himself, which is what Superboy would want to do. He wants to keep on that lead lap so that he can have as much time as possible to attack the cars in front. I believe he is racing Pappy ahead for position, unless if his pit stop earlier on really did set him a few laps down. He was in the pit lane for quite some time, so he might actually be more than one lap down. So Superboy might just be here to make sure he finishes the race and collects those points so that he is a classified finisher. So Pigham's slightly gaining again. He has closed the gap up a little bit, so he'll be enjoying the fact that these two ahead are still carrying on their battle. I'm still running around in P6, a relatively quiet race at the moment. We've got Cobra as well, who are having a decent return to the series after missing a few races. He is running around in P7, which is definitely not a result to sniff at. However, he has got TDC right behind him on fresh tyres, and I don't think it will take TDC very long to overtake him, because TDC has proven to be one of the quickest guys around this track so far today. And yeah, very easy work into turn one, just later on the brakes, more turning grip. He does slightly defend coming through there, but nothing doing as of the moment. As we see in the background, Mark having a crash with one of the back markers. He's not got any damage, he's not hit the wall I don't think, but he's had a crash with one of the back. I think that was Pappy and Superboy that he was trying to race, as it was when we last checked with him. And all of a sudden, Tap is right on the back for a potential win here. So Mark seemingly having the race of his dreams up until that moment. So now the battle for the lead really does intensify, because it was looking so good. And it was looking like it was almost done and dusted, despite being an oval track where the pack racing is so close. It looked done and dusted for Mark, but all of a sudden he will be checking the mirrors all the time to see if Tap does have the slipstream. I think both these drivers will be running without weight as well, and they pitted at a very similar time, so this is a very straight fight between these two. And I guess that is all the luck that Tap needs. He just needed a bit of luck just to get into that battle, and Mark hits the wall. He's got damage. And it's a relatively easy move for Tap, who just sees his opportunity instantly. And he's taking the lead. He probably can't believe what's just happened. With only 2 minutes left in the race, he's only going to lead the last 4 laps of the race out if it stays as it is. And out of nowhere, he's going to take it, I believe. I don't think Mark can really respond. If these two are very similar on pace, I don't think he can respond with the damage that he has, which is a massive shame for him because he's done nothing wrong all race. As you see now, Petrol has actually broken away from the battle between Bar and Piggins. I suspect that Bar and Piggins have actually been fighting each other. Bar does have front end damage and quite sore tyre wear as well. So I believe these drivers now, they will have 3 more laps in this race from this moment. So it's not a whole lot of time. You've only got 1 minute and 30 seconds, well, 1 minute and 15 seconds now left on the clock. So, and despite nearing the end of the race, and there's still so much going on. We've got Doug trying to hold on to keeping Troy behind, who's trying to still unlap himself. And as we see there, Steve just trying to have a look up the inside. He does not want to throw this away. He does not want to repeat performance of what happened to Mark a few laps ago. But he safely gets up the inside of Simon, who just gives him the position quite fairly into that turn 2. So Steve, with only a handful of laps, well, only a couple of laps left now, and Pappy just seemingly, he's also got damage as well in this race, but he does get out of the way. He doesn't fight this one. So again, most drivers in this race seeming to be just playing very fair with each other and just giving each other the room. No point trying to hold up someone who's a lap ahead of you. And Mike there, again with front end damage, and his front right tyre is punctured. He's got no grip on that front right, and he'll be very slow towards the end of the race. You can see Razor catching him hand over fist as it stands. And I need to cut back to the leader, who just gets one more lap in as it stands. So I believe that Petrol will be the first to finish. He gets a podium just ahead of Barr at the end of that race, with Piggins seemingly running out of fuel as I take home P5, Piggins in P6, TDC running in P7, Cobra in 8th, Doug finishes in 9th. Although saying that, Simon is got a lot of speed coming on the final corner, and Simon just snatches it on the line. So, well, all kicking off there at the end. So, as I didn't catch it quite there in the race, but as you can see on the right-hand side, we got Tap, who wins the race. That is confirmed, with Mark in 2nd place. And then the people behind who were finished the lap down, we've got Pappy, who finished in P11, I think that is, Razor in P12, Mike in P13, and Superboy in P14. So I will quickly just get the